Today we have an all-new large Lexus SUV for you. This is the Lexus TX. The first time we see that one out here. And the question is, how does it fit into the Lexus SUV lineup and how does it rate against the competitors? For example, the Mercedes GLS or the BMW X7. How good is it? We're going to find out here with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with this. Wow, look at that front. And also look at that landscape here outside Joshua Tree National Park in California. So beautiful. And we even got our own bungalow here for you today for this beautiful location. If you want to rent out that one yourself, we'll also put a link in the pinned comment. That's also a very beautiful place to stay, definitely. Here, look at that front. It almost looks like a train approaching, doesn't it? And then here above these headlamps, like with this, samurai sword drawn, really spectacular. I think it also works with the rest of the Lexus design language and so lovely because this one is registered in Texas. We do not have a front license plate and that makes this front, of course, even cleaner. So inside the Lexus SUV lineup, where does it sit? This one is actually a successor of the Lexus RXL. There is the SUV, the RX, also in the new generation. We recently shown it to you. The RXL was the longer version for that with the third seating row, but didn't have a longer wheelbase, so didn't make much more sense. Now, an own model with more wheelbase to fit a third seating row. This is kind of like the Lexus family SUV. And as I said, against the Mercedes GLS or the BMW X7. And it kind of sits then in this crossover SUV direction, whereas the Lexus GX and the LX are the large Lexus SUVs, which also have more off-road capabilities. Pretty cool here how the turning indicators replace the daytime running light. It looks really fancy, isn't it? And also really wide and visible. However, the main headlamp unit, especially when I was driving around here, the Joshua Tree or Yucca Valley area, I think that the main headlamp unit needs a little bit more power. I tend to always use the high beam actually because the main headlamp unit was not that powerful, I feel. So that maybe needs to be upgraded a little. So the length here is 5.16 meters or 203 inches. That's really full-size SUV, at least for my European taste. And the interesting thing is now, if we compare the RXL from the previous generations, this one here now has 15 centimeters or 6 inches longer wheelbase. If we compare the current generation RX, still 4 inches or 10 centimeters longer wheelbase, that the third seating row really makes sense this time. What do you think about the design, by the way? I found it really beautiful because it is so simple, straight lines to give you more space on the inside. And I always like simple design with vehicles. Wheels 20-inch or optional 22-inch. These are the optional 22-inch wheels. And I think they look really well, especially in this kind of spider design here. Fits well also to the black color, called Caviar, by the way. In the rear, the design is kind of boxy again. I don't know, what about you? I love boxy designs. It's maybe also my German Bauhaus preference as for the architecture, but Lexus does it here very well too. And the light strip goes all the way through, left to right. Looks also clean and beautiful. And hey, we also have a Texas number plate. Look at that. And this very well fits to the TX name. If you're not coming from the US, let me explain. TX is the state abbreviation for the state of Texas. So it's kind of like a homage from Lexus to the Texas state. Hyundai did it with the Santa Fe and the Tucson, for all the New Mexico fans. And this, does really fit to Texas and the whole style of the vehicle also. Everything's bigger in Texas, so everything's bigger here also with the Lexus TX. And our friends from the Straight Pipes, best greetings to you, they also made their thumbnail directly saying Lexus Texas. I found that very funny, guys. Rear turning indicators, however, rather disappointing, aren't they? Key fob is nothing special, pretty much standard. Then doors, let's listen to the sound. Actually quite good. Then inside of the doors, well, to have brown in here, maybe matter of preference. This is also the optional Mark & Levinson sound system. We're going to test that one later. The door opening logic is here. You press this one in like this. It's like this electronic release, and if you would need a manual failsafe, then you would pull these here twice. Seats, as for base trim and F Sport, they get the new Lux leatherette material in black, grey or brown. Here, however, is the animal skin equipment in the luxury trim. And besides the animal aspect, the new materials are also better in the practicability features nowadays. Seat ergonomics, however, is really good. Upright seating position, very comfortable, and headroom here with 189 or 6'2". Still a lot of headroom left, although this one is even the version with the panoramic roof, and there is, first of all, need to turn on the ignition, first of all, a large shade available. That's of course important, especially when you live in Texas. Here, there we go, and then you can also, wow, that goes really wide, and then you can open the whole thing. No, hold there. There we go. So that's pretty cool, and we have been testing that even on the highway, and 50 miles an hour, like 90 kilometers an hour, is really fine to drive it. It's not too loud. At 60, 65 miles an hour, so above 100 kilometers an hour, then you start thinking, hey, I might close that. But I think it's an overall great result, because most other panoramic roofs need to be closed way earlier because it's getting too loud, so well done here as well. Interior cockpit overview, really nice. We have a microfiber inset right here. This here, this and this is soft touch. Build quality wise, what I saw as flaw is here, when you touch the middle console with your leg, the sound, squeaking sound, you see like everything is also moving there, so this should be better. After all, this is basically the Lexus version of a Toyota Grand Highlander, platform wise. USB-C charging, then the steering wheel can be moved up and down, in and out quite quickly, and that's making a good impression. And then here, 12.3-inch digital instruments. You get them together in a tech pack with the head-up display. And on the right side, always 14-inch screen right here. And this is very interesting. Look at that. They are using the screen, but then adding physical elements that basically control the screen for you. So you have this blending of digital and manual user interface. Why not? What do you think about this solution? This is also being used in other new Lexus models and the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Then the screen itself has either this nighttime mode or this bright mode, but I prefer the dark mode. It looks more classy, I feel. You can also have it automatically switching. Then here for the heated steering wheel or the heated seats or the cool seats, but you can also leave that in auto function, then with temperature detection. And then these are the normal vehicle settings, like the drive mode. You can also drive in the sport mode, more throttle input and so on. So this is not that relevant when you don't have the F Sport. In the F Sport, then also suspension would actually change with the adaptive suspension. And you also have a car internal GPS like this. It is usable and it guided us very well outside of the Los Angeles traffic. However, it could be a little bit quicker in the responsiveness times, as you see. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Here the CarPlay works wired or wireless. And also the Mark & Levinson sound system is actually pretty cool. Not exactly when it's really silent, but when you really have it on loud music, then you will discover the whole glory of this system. Good. Real buttons at the steering wheel. This is here the inductive charging pad. It's not cooled though or vented. But then you can also slide it away and then you have more storage underneath. These here are the adaptive cup holders, really large, and you can also unlock them and then just pull everything out for this vast open area. Middle armrest is really plush and then split opening and a lot of space underneath. Legroom, when I am driving here as a tall driver, there's still some legroom left. However, you can see that the rear seats are pretty tall here in the rear, so it's really suitable for children, that they don't feel lost actually. As an adult, you have the feeling that you sit quite high. However, it still works here with the headroom, still have some space over my head. I can also slide these seats here forward like this. It's like a 1/3, 2/3 split. You can also do the same here on this side with this lever here, I go forward and backward. Soon going to show you the access to the third seating row. Then you can slide down this one here with adaptive cup holders. And it's really comfortable here also in the rear. You also have this control unit where you have USB-C charging and also an own climate unit for the rear. So what can I do here now? With this lever here, I can change the angle of the back part of the seat. That is one. Then I can also use this one to slide this one forward here manually. However, for more comfort, I can also press a button here on top of the seats. Then it's like an electronic help, and I can slide this one forward for an easier access to the third seating row. Or then as the last option, when I pull this one or I use the top one and I want to put this one here even flatter, then I pull this lever then, and then I can start it back like this. So, and then I can fold it flat for, loading through with the trunk and so on. And now I crouch into the third seating row. This is the moment where I find these comments with time code, Thomas in the third seating row. And the question is now, how do I do the shoe tap that I don't make the interior dirty in the rear? It's not possible actually from this position, so I think I'd rather take off my shoes. So there we go. And then let's close the door. And the question is, first of all, it's actually quite cozy in the rear. It even works with my headroom. But the question is, there's also controls from here. I can control the back part of the seat here. Oh, wow. That's nice. But the biggest question is, what about the legroom? So first of all, when here the rear bench is all the way back, like no one saw or heard that. So when the rear bench is all the way back, then of course it gets, really close here with the legs. However, we could now slide this bench there a little bit forward. It would still work with the legroom. So I wouldn't exactly say it's maybe like, for everyone tall, super tall adults. But I think for short trips, it would work actually to house 7 tall adults here. Remember, we have 2 possibilities, like this here for most passenger use, 7-seater. You could also get a 6-seater, then with the 2 captain seat set up here in the second seating row. But overall, there's very good space and also kind of flexible that you can, for example, here can control this one here electronically. I can also have this, folding mechanism here at the back part of the seat, so I can actually unlock myself that way. I think the best setup would be then indeed when I put this one here in a way, maybe up to here, and maybe do it like this, not all the way back. I think I could barely still sit then there, and so it would work more or less for 7 tall adults. Overall, a good result. Most cases probably the kids will be then back here in the rear. And also good, we also have ISOFIX here at the third seating row, so you can also use these one for child seats. And for the second seating row, you have either top tethers, and you also have here low these anchors as well in the front. So if I count correctly now, that would make 5 possible child seats here in this vehicle. That's quite good actually. Now the question is if Leah is gonna let me here rot in the third row, or if you could please let me out. Well, wait a minute. No, I have these buttons here. I can let out myself here. Here we go. And I also appreciate this simple but useful feature. These manual shades for the rear seats, and you see it also goes really wide. Yeah, the wind is picking up now. Let's check out the trunk or the boot. 20 cubic feet or 570 liters behind the third seating row, and here is extremely wide, like 130 or 51 inches in width here. So that's astonishing. You can see you can even store luggage when all the seating rows are up. And then you have practical features, for example, here. So when hitting these buttons here, these ones put it up, and putting them low, then you can put them down. You can see here, you almost think, oh, that will crash soon. But then in this moment here, the head restraints fall down. This is all electric. And then we can have this setup here with 57 cubic feet or 1,630 liters. That's the way. This is the way. So then we have the length here at about 130 in meters or 52 inches. That's really good. And then of course we can even still fold these, but for that we have to go around. Here we go. This is then the maximum setup. You can put down this as well. And towing capacity, by the way, up to 5,000 pounds. And here you can see the enormous width of the trunk, and even when the third seating row is up, Leah can fit in there basically, and yeah, have a break between the shooting. One of the things I found most interesting is the price. $55,000 entry price here with the TX 350. That's the entry level engine. That's just $3,000 more expensive than the RX, but then you get so much more of a vehicle. And also, you know, that's like half the price of a Mercedes GLS or the BMW X7. Astonishing, isn't it? And then this engine here, the 350, is a 2.4 liter turbo petrol engine. 275 horsepower, around 7 seconds in the acceleration figure, 4-cylinder. And I think that's actually enough. You get either front-wheel drive or option electric all-wheel drive. And we could score some 27 mpg US with that one. Predominantly highway driving, 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. So that's like 32 mpg UK and like 9 liters on 100 kilometers. Of course, it will be a little bit worse when you have more city traffic and so on. Alternatively, you could take this base engine here, the 2.4 liter 4-cylinder turbo, and go with the inbuilt hybrid system. That is then the 500h. So this would give you a little bit better mileage. However, it's also a little bit higher in the entry price. This one always comes with electric all-wheel drive. And you also get a 3.5 liter V6 plug-in hybrid, then with a naturally aspirated V6. That one is actually the most powerful one. But then again, it would also be higher in price, 18 kilowatt hours gross battery, so maybe like 50 kilometers, 30 miles of pure electric range. So I said $55,000 as an entry price for this one here, the 350. This very vehicle here with all the equipment, extras inside and so on, $69,000. Of course, more than the base price, yes, but still in comparison to the competition and also what you get for this one in comparison to the RX, I think quite a good deal for a large premium SUV. Or what do you think? So let's see. Sport mode and some acceleration. Let's go. 30 miles. Yep, that's 60 miles an hour. So that was 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. Yeah, pretty decent, right? So quite quick. And you also heard that the sport mode, when you use that one, that really boosts the vehicle, the RPMs go higher and so on. You switch it here in the infotainment system, so most of the time probably you will not do that and just drive in the normal mode. However, when you pin it down, then of course you also have all the power you need. Here then, let's check out, this is here front wheel driven. So when I accelerate hard out of the corner, yeah, see here it was also a little bit sandy, so tires need a little bit to get the grip, but you saw that the steering actually was pretty calm overall, so no hectic movement from the steering, although it was accelerating out of the corner. Of course, the sporty side is not the emphasis of this vehicle. The real emphasis is, of course, the comfort. So when running straight and so on, suspension. So when everything is rather flat as for the asphalt in front of you, it's really likable. Even though we have the 22-inch wheels here, if you want it even more comfortable, you should stick with the 20-inch wheels. And I especially recommend it when you live in an area where the roads are a little bit worse. So, for example, when I was driving inside LA and there were a lot of potholes and so on, then I felt that the suspension did not suck away these potholes that well. So this would be, for example, something when you ask, hey, you pay less money than for the big German SUVs like Mercedes GLS or BMW X7. Is there anything you get less from that? Of course, entering school. Oh, interesting. The GPS is always giving me like heads up. For example, here entering school zone where you reduce the speed when children are present. Also was covering HOF lanes yesterday when we were driving around LA area. So that was actually a pretty helpful thing then from the GPS. So back to the suspension. I feel that the Germans have this better balance of agility and comfort at the same time. Here it's more set on comfort, not so much on the driving fun. We'll later on, by the way, do some more riding corners. But also when there are potholes and so on, the suspension is not the best. It might be different with the F Sport suspension, because that one's an adaptive one. At the same time, it's also set on a sportier note, so we would have to compare that one to one. That would be very interesting, definitely. But suspension-wise, this is something where Lexus is not as good as the Germans. Then again, they lead the reliability rankings always together with Toyota. So that's of course something when you buy one and have it long term, which is also super important. Steering, by the way, is pretty nice and direct. There's no dead zone area. Let's compare it here in the driving modes again. Sport mode. The throttle input changes directly, but steering, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Actually, for me, cooler in sport mode. So sport mode definitely gives you a little bit more feedback with the steering than the normal mode. And you could also, for example, go into a custom mode and have some custom presets. So that would also be possible. Yeah, but overall, for me, one of the most important things is that there's a good noise insulation. So to drive here like 55 miles an hour, so like close to 100 kilometers an hour. And here we have it really silent. Good insulation, and you can enjoy the nature here outside Joshua Tree National Park. Such a beautiful desert landscape, and there's hardly anything outside, although it's a very windy day today. So that's cool, running straight. And this panoramic front screen, you have such a good view from the inside to the outside. I mean, look at that. I'm not sure if you can really see that from that camera here. It's such a clear, visible view, and you have so much space. You can really look out the front. So this makes it, to me, also a very cool traveling vehicle. Assistance systems. Look at that here. I have the adaptive cruise control with active lane keeping assist. And this is also guiding me through these corners. There's the blind spot monitor. Also here in the side mirror, they have a light. And is it a good system or is it excellent? I would say good, not excellent. Because here, in these corners, it's guiding me quite well, actually. That's okay. Sometimes the movements are a little bit too hectic, talking on a very high level, There are worse systems, but there are also better systems. And sometimes I feel here, for example, I'm too close to the left lane. That happens, so I needed to correct myself now. And also, what sometimes also happened is that when you're going straight and the line is not that visible, then it was going like this a little bit. So overall, I would say assistance systems good, but not excellent. In these corners, when I take over myself, it's actually quite fun. So you don't feel the size or the weight of the vehicle that much. That would only apply to very tight corners. What you have to get used to maybe when you switch over from a smaller SUV or something is the braking time and also the reaction from the brake pedal. It is requiring some work indeed, so you really have to put pressure on the brake pedal. Then you have an okay feeling, but maybe, we as humans, we sometimes tend to underestimate the braking distance. And so I think it's sometimes better when the brakes are a little bit more aggressive, not maybe in the very first, few centimeters, but then that they get a little bit more aggressive, that you're safer in an emergency situation. Because also when you need full braking power, most of the time we don't hammer it in that much as needed, like in real emergency braking. So I think it would be helpful if the vehicle would be a little bit more aggressive from the brakes here. But overall you get used to it, and then it's actually also fine. What? Thomas, why have you changed clothes and also glasses now in 5 minutes, 3 times in a row? Sorry about that. Here in the desert area, the temperatures is constantly changing and depends on sun and time of the day and so on. Now it's a little bit later, and I want to show you this great uphill. We've been using this one here for the BMW 7 Series review and also for the Mercedes EQS AMG review. So it's a beautiful road up the hill, up to the Coachella viewpoint. So it's a beautiful vista point as well. I can only recommend that to you. And here we're driving like 50 miles an hour uphill, and it's surprisingly fun. I mean, I said that the steering feel is actually quite good. Just in the normal mode, that's absolutely fine. That's right, by the way, the thing. So at the moment, I could not safely switch the driving mode while I'm driving myself because I need to finger around in that touchscreen there, and I would not do that here in these fast corners. But this is really a lot of fun to put it up the hill. So yes, when you're like braking into tight corners, then it would... Oh, thank you, Leah. Sport mode, please.
Hey, Leah.
Yeah, hey Leah, sport mode, please. Yeah, she's the best voice assistant, I can tell you. So here now, sport mode, a little bit more throttle, definitely a little bit more RPM. The steering is also a little bit crisper, but it's really a lot of fun to put it up there. So I would have imagined that they say like, yeah, okay, you know, they feel it's just on comfort and so on, but especially when it's a little bit higher speed and it's a little bit more floating corners, then it's really a lot of fun. It's only, again, when I say you're braking in to tight corners, then there's, of course, at some point limit, and then, for example, especially a BMW X7 would feel more agile. But here up the hill, it's actually a great job. It's so much fun. So positively surprised by that. Can also master this discipline. And you also see how it looks like when it's a little bit darker. The only thing I told you earlier, when it's really super, super dark and the main headlamp unit, I think, needs a little bit more distance. That would be actually cool, that you don't need to use high beam all the time, because at some point maybe there might be some vehicles that you blind and then you don't want to drive with high beam all the time, of course. Yeah, that would be the only thing. Wow, what a view. Look at that, guys. So beautiful. Wow. Sunsets in the deserts is really one of my most favorite things. And yeah, driving it up here, you really forget that you're driving a large SUV. And of course, you should check out the competitors, the Mercedes GLS and the BMW X7.